Okay. Live on YouTube, live on LinkedIn, live WhatsApp message sent to thousands of people. Yeah, perfect. Good to go. Now let your comments roll in. 8:07. God damn it. I was live at 8:04. 8:04 is not 8 o'clock. It is not 8 o'clock, right? But let's have our comments rolling in and then we will begin. Good morning, everyone, says Mr. Tarun. Good morning, Tarun. Mr. Tarun. I'll say that on behalf of everyone. If you can hear me, let me know and we will begin. Right? Yup. Beautiful. So you can hear me. WhatsApp messages have been sent. Everything is tight, right? Oh no, I didn't need that in my life. Just 1 second. Good. So we will begin. Bum bum bum. The show that we deserve. The show that we deserve. We deserve it. It's so good we can't take a break. We cannot take a break. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We are working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, you gotta follow tradition, right? You know the tradition. You know the sweet and sacred tradition of the simultaneous sip. We'll all sip something together and it'll bring us good luck, as it always does, without fail. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a copper mug, a glass, a tank, a chalice, a stein, a canteen, jug, a flask, or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. I like hot water with some black pepper in it. And let's go! Oh my god. Beautiful. Delicious. Let's do it again. So nice. So nice. Right? You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we are in this together. That's such a beautiful thing to say. With that out of the way, let's begin. SMBC, that's Sumitomo Banking, Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation. It's lining up 16,000 crores, approximately $2 billion for Yes Bank. We've been following this story. Yes Bank was a bank founded by Mr. Rana Kapoor back in 2004-5, something in that time, 2004 to 6. It grew up as a very big franchise. It established itself as a very forward-looking, technology-loving bank. It was one of the architects of the whole fintech revolution, UPI. If you noticed, PhonePay's UPI has whatever your number is at the rate YBL. YBL is Yes Bank Limited. So Yes Bank was one of the pioneers in that era. However, the bank was dealing with some sort of shady lending practices. a lot of NPAs. The bank didn't classify those accounts as NPAs, but the government said, the RBI said, that these are NPAs indeed, which led to a very, very swift ouster of Mr. Rana Kapoor, the founder of the bank. And that became a case, that became a legal firestorm, right? Uh, and then the government caught him and he's now in custody. He was ousted. The bank fell. The bank was taken over by SBI essentially. And in 2020, SBI began its turnaround operation. And when that happened, in 2025, it seems the turnaround is done. SBI is exiting. Sumitomo is buying some stake, 13,500 crores for 20% stake. It's gonna buy more, and then it's also investing some money, 16,000 crore. That is 7.5 in equity and 8.5 in debt. So SBI's stake will come down from 23.9% to 10%, and the bank is doing well. Net interest margins around 2.5%, capital adequacy okay, and so on and so forth, right? So yes, bank story is evolving, and Sumitomo might just will for sure be leading that bank. Sumitomo, by the way, is Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation. It's the top three banking players of Japan, right? One is Nomura, one is Sumitomo. I don't know the third one. I'm missing the third one. If somebody can remember that name, I'll be very happy. Moving on. The Trump situation with India has seen a very interesting turnaround. If not a turnaround, a very interesting development. Peter Navarro, who is essentially the leading advisor on tariffs and this economic scene to Trump, recently gave an interview yesterday where he said that we are very perplexed, we are confused. We thought that the tariff situation would actually make India stop buying Russian oil. And if India stops buying Russian oil, that's it. Russia gets no money, right? And Russia will stop the war. Now, I know that EU also buys Russian oil, which is crazy. But India was supposed to stop. And the moment India stopped buying Russian oil, right, it would have stopped the war. But India is not doing anything. And these are not your friends, folks. You are lining up with authoritarian figures, that is China and the Russians. These are not your friends. Side with the democracies, said Mr. Peter Navarro. Now and he said, PM Modi is a great leader. India is a mature democracy with intelligent people leading it, and so on and so forth. But he's perplexed with how India is dealing with the situation. Now, this is a pretty solid, let's say, validation to Indian markets, because it seems like US is rattled with what India has done, right? So India has not chosen to kowtow, bow to America's arm twisting, let's say, and that has created a very, very complicated situation for America, for India, for everybody except Russia. So Russia gains, and everybody else loses, right? India loses, America loses, and everybody's perplexed. However, with that happening, Mizuho, says Mr. Tarun about the Japanese bank. Thank you, Mr. Tarun. While that is happening, PM Modi is meeting China. I mean, in the Shanghai SCO meet, right? It's going to happen. He's likely to meet President Xi on Sunday. Now, there are a lot of things that are going on as far as the Indian-Chinese market are concerned. India, what it wants is some of the Chinese markets for its produce. China wants worry-free investments and a lot of things. China also wants India's territory, but I hope that doesn't come up. So there's some sort of talks as far as India and China is considered. Meanwhile, India and Japan are also having a conversation. So India has started accelerating its democratic ties with everybody else, in a bid to actually stand for. So it's no longer a purely economic issue, clearly, and US is very perplexed. We've discussed this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember. We've talked about how this situation was a shot in the foot for US, but as it shot in the foot, it tripped over India, right? So India got hurt. and that's what's going on. Very interesting. PM's first visit to China, Japanese investments in Indian companies, Japanese ties with India in defense sector. So a lot of things are happening. But speaking of things that are happening, I almost forgot. Did you check the markets yesterday? Right? I should have begun with this. I'm sorry. But if you checked the markets yesterday, you would have found out that the markets, you know, tripped. Right? They went low, as we said they would, because Wednesday was when the tariff situation uh, came in place, and Wednesday was Ganesh Chaturthi, so the markets were closed. Thursday the markets opened and they tripped, which is what was supposed to happen very very clearly. But Aether, the stock didn't go up, right? And this is exactly what I told you. Do you remember what I told you? I told you that Aether had a great news. That Aether has finally eclipsed Ola in the total sales, right? Volume. Now that should have really put Aether stock on the moon, right? However, Ether stock essentially went 7% up, 6 to 7% up on Tuesday. That is 2 days ago, right? And even with this news coming out, the stock wouldn't move in a positive direction. I told you that, right? If you remember, I told you. Uh, that is because some information, the trader markets is privy to way before everybody else. That's how the retail investors get screwed, right? Because the best you could do is follow the trends, follow the news, and basis that news you can actually make your call and so on and so forth. But if that news is a current affair, right? If it's not a fundamental which is playing out in the long term, if it's a current affair, the trading market has already priced that in, right? And if you would have bought the share yesterday, or at an intraday play, it wouldn't have worked out for you. So that's why intraday trading is a loss proposition for a retail trader who doesn't have access to that kind of information, going to these guys first. So with that out of the way, let's begin. Festive e-commerce shopping, and we told you. So if you are watching Thinkers Frequency, you have these insights which otherwise people learn the hard way, very very hard way, right? They lose a lot of money and then they figure out, oh, god damn this morning's ass, right? But anyway, festive e-commerce shopping to deliver 1 lakh crore milestone and then some. Of course, we've been talking about how uh, you know the the entire economy, the Indian economy, is sitting on this festive season, on everything, right? This festive season is very, very important for whatever is going to happen to India. And it seems like the projection says that there's going to be a 1 lakh crore milestone as far as e-commerce is considered, just e-commerce, and about 14,000 crores would be going to quick commerce. So that is 14% of e-commerce shopping during this festive season will be going to quick commerce. Now, 1 lakh crore is twelve billion dollars, 12 to 14 billion dollars, and that is a serious number, right? And these people are looking at a pretty solid. This is by the way a big gain, as far as this was just 2,000 crores in 2015. So the quick commerce and the e-commerce sector has clearly uh, you know come of age, if you can say. Sales this year would mark a 27% rise from 94,000 crore in 2024. So they're expecting like 1.2 lakh crore. Let's see what happens. To maintain growth, FM affirms exporters. So finance minister is saying in the midst of everything that don't fire people. We're gonna come up with support, right? Do not fire people. Keep the employment continuous, because if you fire people, cascading effects of that are gonna screw things up. Don't fire people. Keep the people on. The thing is, it's gonna be very difficult for people to keep the thing on, right? Keep the employees on, because gem and jewelry exporters, especially, like 10 billion of them, they can't compete in a $50 billion, 50% tariff rate. So they just go out of business, right? They simply they evaporate, right? That's the problem. And if they see themselves evaporating, they cannot keep a very high employment number, and they do hire a lot of people. Same goes with the textile folks, right? They do hire a lot of bottom of the pyramid people, and it would be very difficult for them to sustain hiring people. Now, what Finance Minister Madam Sitharaman says is that you keep hiring those people, and we'll figure this out. Now we can't obviously give SOPs, for a $10 billion trade. You can't like do SOPs, but you can have a moratorium on a loan eased out. You can have a better credit facility. You can have some sort of supports here and there, right? Which could essentially placate some of the concerns. But layoffs are basically unavoidable, despite what Madam Sitharaman is requesting the companies. By the way, one LSE NSE co-location case. So NSE has been under ire, the legal ire, because of the co-location case. NSE is also looking at IPOing. By the way, it's going to go public. And before it went public, a few bones of contention were the co-location scandal, right? Now that co-location thing, one case has been closed by CBI. So the case was that whoever is in the co-location game, they need to be audited, and one particular auditor cannot be auditing more than 3 times or something of that sort. And then they need to be properly audited, and the system needs to so on and so forth. So there's a lot of regulations as far as the whole co-location game is considered. But what they found out was that the income tax commissioner and a lot of some babus and some here and there people, they essentially jacked the system. And the CAs and the auditor guys, they were just paid like $5,000, very little auditing firms, tiny auditing firms, they're just signing off on the documents. So that was a case, it was a clear play, but they've now closed the case. So it's gonna be easier for NSE to IPO once all the cases have been withdrawn, right? So one of them is out. Moving on. July's IIP, Indian industrial production, has come at a 4-month high. So we've talked about we've talked about how that index is going up, right? The manufacturing index and everything, and they had like a 65 reading, which signals great growth, right? Anything above 50 on that index is expansion, anything below 50 is contraction. It worked out very well in July. Those numbers are pouring in by the end of August. That's what happens. This analysis just keeps happening, and then August happens, and then you're going to see that analysis happening. It doesn't really pay to know these numbers much, because these numbers in a large scheme of things don't matter, because you have to have a sort of a macro view, sort of a distanced view from this, right? Month on month tracking of every particular index is valuable if you're in the daily trading play, but not that valuable if you're looking at a macro picture. But July was great. So Indian industrial output rose to a 4-month high of 3.5% in July, driven by manufacturing. Mining was not cool. Mining had a bit of a problem, but other than that, it was a pretty cool play, right? Which is collinear with our expectation. Mr. Taran asks, related to agriculture, cotton might be expensive during the next yield season. Cotton, no, because they are allowing cotton imports from outside. Remember, Mr. Taran? So we talked about how the textile industry was basically throwing the cotton farmers under the bus because they were asking the government to allow cotton imports from America, because cotton imports used to have an 11% duty, but they were asking the government to just waive off the duty, and the government probably said yes. So the cotton will not be expensive in the next yield season. Next yield season, what does that mean? Do you mean that those imports are gonna hurt farmers, and then the producers that's a pretty big projection. Moving on. Maritime industry, essentially looking at more Phillips. So we've been talking about the defense sector. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know how bullish we have been. I have been on the defense play. Defense and maritime are like siblings, right? Maritime play. So India is likely to allow large ships to be used as collateral for loans in a bid to ease financing for the maritime industry, right? So a lot of this particular play is easier financing for shipping companies. So India really needs to give some sort of boost to the shipping industry, manufacturing, repairing, managing, maintenance, MRO operations, as we talked about. Shipbuilding is a very very good thing for the Indian economy. It provides great jobs. It's a pretty good industry, which India, by the way, needs a lot because India, despite being a peninsular country, doesn't have much of shipbuilding to speak of, right? So companies like Mascot Dock, Coaching Shipyard, GRSE, they have a good macro long-term outlook. When I say long-term, I don't mean like 10 years. I mean a year and a half year. Next season, there's not going to be as much cotton due to the new monsoon flood in major Punjab areas which grow cotton. Wow. Well, uh, wow, amazing. That kind of analysis is something I really appreciate. This is awesome. Uh, Kudos to you, Mr. Thal. Indo slip trade worries deepen. Let's move on. India, Japan, some political chit chat in US. So US is also facing some sort of political resistance. Uh, Nikki Haley and everybody else, the Democrats, they're saying that Trump has screwed up with India, which is, by the way, right, right. And I expect this backlash to only grow with time because India has an active community there and so on and so forth. And while that community is not that strong, it's a weak community, but still, it is a community, and somehow it's gonna lead to some sort of, feedback on that play. And maybe that feedback might just be enough for US to slowly and steadily back out of what they've done as far as the whole India play. But that's not guaranteed. So, moving on. India, Japan, India, China. Moving on. Some political chit chat, which is not necessary. India's teacher count is has crossed 1 crore. So there's something called a pupil teacher ratio, which should be, according to the global norms, be less than 1:30. Okay, that is NEP's norm. But pupil teacher ratio is 1:10 at foundational, 1:13 at preparatory, 1:17 at middle, and 1:21 at secondary, which is a good pupil teacher ratio for the country. And 63% of schools now equipped with computers and internet, which sounds low, but it's actually pretty amazing. 63%. 8,000 schools report zero enrollment. Over 1 lakh operate with just single teacher, and 55 are barrier free with ramps and handrails. So that's a study on the Indian teacher and schooling market. Apparently, about 97% of the toilet schools have toilets, right? 93% have electricity, 97.3 have toilets, girls' toilets. So you can assume, like, a school which doesn't have girls' toilets cannot be like a working play, right? 93% have electricity, 7% do not, and so on and so forth. 99.3 have drinking water. So those 0.7% schools are basically don't exist, right? But the teacher count is growing up. Pupil teacher ratio, that's always been a very, very big target for the country. Electricity, just 63%. With electricity, we'll get internet, we'll get AI, and so on and so forth, which is very necessary. Something to think about. We've talked about IIP, mining didn't grow, but manufacturing and everything went up. India hopeful of resuming BTA talks soon, bilateral trade agreements with US. So India is still talking. India is talking to WTO. India is talking to US in the bilateral trade agreement style, where it's saying that these conversations are very difficult. However, we expect something to happen, and The general feel of the situation is that it's not working out as US thought, right? The whole approach of attack on Russia, and the way they thought that they'll be able to arm twist Russia with India as a proxy, didn't really work out. It became a national issue. Mr. Raghuram Rajan, by the way, has come out and said that India should actually stop buying Russian oil and keep the tariff situation intact because India needs US markets. Now, ideally, there would be a lot of doubt as far as what to do when it comes to situations like these, right? That what do you do, whom do you listen to, and so on and so forth. But if Raghuram Rajan has said that India should essentially, stop buying Russian oil, India should definitely keep buying Russian oil because that guy has no clue, right? He didn't want the Indian semiconductor industry to actually be born. He didn't want any investment, the 10,000 crore investment in the chips. So whatever he says, just do the opposite. That's a pretty good, you know, mental model, let's say, because that guy is conflicted, man. That guy is conflicted. Moving on. A lot of ever since the GST rationalization move by the government has been coming to play, there's a lot of companies. Mr. Tiwari says, I was waiting for that flip. Yeah, that flip is necessary, right? You've got to call these people out because these assholes are going to ruin everything. Just imagine if India actually had that guy or those guys or those kinds of guys as decision makers, and basis those decision makers, India would have decided to not start semiconductor industries. Instead, spend those 10,000 crores in universities, on universities, as he suggested, right? So he said that instead of investing 10,000 crores in, to set up industries, give that money to universities for research so that they can do research. That is a criminal suggestion. That is a conflict. He should be investigated, I guess, right? Because what is India's biggest problem as far as the whole education play is considered, right? It's out migration. It's the brain drain, right? Whoever can afford to move out of India, they move out of India. A lot of we send 330,000 students every year to US, just US, right? That means 330,000 affluent rich families, right, with money, and those people are not uneducated. Those people are affluent, intelligent, capable people with all the resources. They go to US, and most of them after having done their bachelor's from India, right? And what he said was invest that money in R&D so that these students can learn from whatever they have learned. And since there is no industry in India, they'll just go out to the US and make money. And that was his serious suggestion on the issue, right? So whatever he says, thinking about the opposite is obviously a good idea, because nothing he says after that can be taken seriously, right? Obviously. So that is that. Moving on. No respect to him. No respect at all. At all. Moving on. Large ships as collateral for loans. It's going to help the maritime industry. We've been talking about that a lot. Due to financial constraints, Indian ship owners are not being able to order new ships to local shipyards. Vision document said, right? Maritime Development Fund of 25,000 crores. This will directly benefit financing for ship acquisition. Very, very good news. Very good news. Moving on. So we were talking about the GST thing. As soon as the government rationalized the GST, which was a very interesting thing to do, right? 5%, 12% going away, 5%, 18%, and 28 to 18%. So that was every company who can try, they're trying, right? And they're coming up with their own pitches. Okay. Now the pitches, water purifier companies have said that we need a 5% GST. Why? Because it's a health issue. Are pushing for reduction in GST currently taxed at 12 or higher to align with essential items like food. Now that's an interesting pitch. That is an interesting pitch. Do you think the government will give away that? 99% of whatever was selling, 99% of whatever was selling at the 12% GST rate slab is going to shift at the 5% slab. Would water purifiers be amongst those things? Proposal was universally accepted by group of ministers and now will be discussed at length with GST Council. Now, it's not just these guys. We've discussed how mobile phone manufacturers are also talking about 5% GST. They've said that Indian mobile phones are empowering devices. Like everybody has their own pitch, right? So water purifiers say that we are a health food. We are a food item. We are an essential thing. It's a health issue. Mobile phones say that we are empowering devices, right? We basically connect people to internet, education, and everything. You need to let it go because mobile phones are not selling. 150 smartphones, some 230 million total phones. So there's a total number of phones that are sold in India. It's basically 330 million. Empowering screen time, says Mr. Tarun. But they have a pitch. So a lot of these people, Mr. R.C. Bhargav came out. He has an interview today. He said the GST rationalization on small cars will lead to overall boost of the economy. He said, now his pitch was, now they've already talked about reducing GST on small cars, right? So small cars are going to come down to the 12% to the 18% play, down from 28% to 18%. He said that incentivizing small cars will lead to better consumption of small cars. And once that happens, we'll be able to create more jobs and it's going to be better for the economy, especially in the light of, especially in the light of the tariff situation. So he said that in order to attract a lot of private capex in the automotive sector, lower GST on small cars is very necessary. Absolutely right. Cannot argue with R.C. Bhargav sir in almost anything because he's just like a legend. Another thing he said was that EVs were GST'd at 5%, while the cars, every other car is basically being GST'd at 18%, right? Even the hybrids. Now, you are incentivizing one form of clean car and essentially disincentivizing the other form of clean car, right? Which is not cool. Not cool. So, he says that if you are trying to promote clean energy or you're trying to promote the clean emission play, you've got to have some sort of tax parity as far as both of these plays are considered. In other words, he's basically gunning for hybrid vehicles. In other words, he's basically gunning for the Japanese line of thought. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember, since 96 episodes now, we've talked about how Japan has not been very, very pro EV ecosystem, right? Japanese companies from Toyota to Honda to Suzuki, all of these guys have been very, very pro hybrids. Why? Because they didn't want to, let's say, totally be dependent on China. Because the EV revolution is like 100% China, right? No matter who plays, China wins. And these people knew that. So Japanese car companies have been pushing for hybrids, they've been pushing for alternate fuels and so on and so forth, right? And that's what Mr. R.C. Bhargav just said today, right? So if we've been following, if you've been watching Thinkers Frequency, you would have just assumed that that would have been his line of thought and you would have been right? So what's the time right now? It's 8:40. No, it's the time to look into the future. Mr. Satish has a comment. There are a lot of decisions Rajan took, such as acting against highly leveraged companies, which saw banks getting more careful, birth of bankruptcy code. Well, he's not responsible for any of that. NPAs were a big problem, and the government, when it came in 2014, it realized NPA as a very, very big problem. They basically had phone banking as one of the election slogans. So I wouldn't give him any credit on that, right? Moving on. Earnings up, some states lead. By the way, good news coming from some states, right? Factory jobs are paying better. Average pay person rising by 28.9% from 2.8 lakh to 3.7 lakhs, right? Sikkim is leading with an average pay of 7.5 lakh, nearly double the national average. Sikkim has a pretty good per capita income, by the way. Sikkim have 7.1 lakhs, 5.4 lakh Goa. Goa is the highest per capita income state in the country. Maharashtra, then so on and so forth. UP recorded the highest increase in total employment, 47.6% rise. So UP essentially really grew its factory numbers, and the second state was basically Arunachal Pradesh. So UP, Chhattisgarh, and then Arunachal Pradesh. I'm really, really happy for Arunachal Pradesh. I'm really happy for Northeast. Whenever Northeast prospers, India prospers. Beautiful people, and I just hope Northeast can grow from strength to strength. And whatever is happening, like Tata's semiconductor facility in Assam, great move. And we hope a lot of manufacturing, a lot of things go to Northeast, because that's gonna really unlock a new frontier for the country, which has basically been ignored until now. Mr. Tiwari says smartphones are the gateway to AI-powered humanoid population. Screen time is just bad side effects. I gotta agree with that. Mobile link shields PM Jan Dhan Yojana accounts from fund diversion. So we talked about this. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember how we said that the direct benefit scheme was looking at some sort of leakages, some sort of corruption, right? Bank accounts being siphoned off here and there. So PM Modi has come out with a statement saying the government said the initiative to link Pradhan Mantri accounts with mobile numbers and Aadhaar cards have proven to be a diversion-proof mechanism for delivery. Now, Jan Dhan Yojana, Jan Dhan scheme has been probably the most transformational scheme for the country, for India. Ever since Jan Dhan Yojana began, since 2014, more than 560 million, that's 56 crore bank accounts have been opened, gathering a total deposit balance of 2.68 lakh crores. 2.68 lakh crores is roughly $30 billion. So $30 billion by 50 crore people, let's say 568 crore, let's say 660 crore people, $30 billion, 60 crore people, that's an average of 5,000 bucks, or is it more? But anyway, Jan Dhan Yojana has essentially transformed the whole financial ecosystem of the country. Jan Dhan came first, Ayushman came second, and so on and so forth. So they're saying that mobile links and Aadhaar are very necessary, which is obvious. This is basically a response to this news item, which said that a lot of leakages are happening as far as these direct benefit transfer schemes are considered, right? The farmer schemes. You remember that? We discussed. Farmers get 6,000 in 3 installments across a year, and a lot of that money was getting siphoned off, right? Some was going to wrong people, and so on and so forth. Not cool. Moving on. SATCOM companies seek license fee, SUC, and bank guarantee relief. So SAT companies are talking about, SATCOM is another industry which is going to go tenfold in 2 years. It's SATCOM. You know the other 2 industries which are going to go tenfold in 2 years, right? Viewers of Thinkers Frequency, do you remember the industries which are just going to go tenfold in a very, very less kind of a time? We've discussed a lot about this, so I appreciate quick comments. I'll take a sip till then. One was SATCOM. What were the other 2? Yeah, so the other 2 were the weight loss drug play. 1 lakh people using now, 1.2 million gonna be using in the next 2 years, and the other was nuclear, right? India is really gunning for the nuclear play. So SATCOM companies, and the third is of course SATCOM. SATCOM companies are basically looking at some sort of license relief, SUC, and bank guarantee relief. Now, the whole play is that at the moment, license fee is like 8% of the annual gross revenue, AGR it's called. Then there's SUC of 4% of AGR. That is, again, SUC is basically spectrum usage charge, right? And then there's, you've got to submit a BR and so on and so forth. Now, these people are really looking forward to these kinds of waivers, because they say that in order to spur the industry growth, fund allocation should be allowed, and so on and so forth, distribution of digital Bharat schemes in satcoms and telecoms. And a lot of people are, it's basically a unanimous call to the government, and most likely, uh, you know, uh, they're going to yield because telcos are also invested. So they're basically asking for a parity as far as the whole telco place considered, uh, yeah, and which we've discussed at length on many times, right? We've discussed how telcos have been fighting satcom for a long time. They've said that, hey, you don't allow these people in the overall market, and these people said no, we are priced higher, and we are just going for areas that are not really covered by the telcos. And telcos have said no, that's right now the prices will reduce, right? Starlink's price, whatever it is right now, it will reduce, and if it reduces, we're screwed. But these people have been having that back and forth, but at the moment satcom looks cool, and they're gonna have these things pretty much sorted. Speaking of telcos and satcoms and everything, high reserve prices have left a lot of airwaves unsold, right? Only 5.64 lakh crore of the spectrum has been sold against 17.2 lakh crore. Now, this is very interesting because why do you think it's happening, right? Because the industry has basically gotten changed, right? With 2016, in 2016 came Geo, and as Geo came, everything changed, right? All the competitors died. There was Aircel, there was Tata Docomo, there was so many players in the fray. There were 8 to 9 players who were bidding for these spectrums, and now there's just 3 people, right? So that essentially happened. Department of Telecoms (DOT) put spectrum worth 17.2 lakh crores under from 2010 to 2024, but managed to sell only 5.65 lakh crores. Now, as per an analysis done by this person, the diminishing returns of SMRA, simultaneous multiple round auction, uh, is pretty intense, right? So they're saying that there used to be something called a winning price to reserve price ratio. Winning price to reserve price ratio is whatever the guys make, the government makes, as far as the auction play is considered, right? It reached 5.34. In 2010, the auction was a landmark success with the winning price to reserve price ratio at 5.35%. Right now, it is flatlined at 1. Reserve price is no longer a floor to bidding, but has become the fixed sale price, which is obvious, which is as you expect will happen when the country becomes a less of a when the market becomes less crowded, right? Where there are less people, this is supposed to happen. Speaking of what's supposed to happen, India's tablet market has shrunk 32%. Tablet market has shrunk 32%. Tablet market didn't really grow in India, right? It didn't grow at all. Like even after, when was tablets? We discussed this, right? It's been over 8 years for the tablet technology. No, that was folding play. That was the folding phones. Yeah, the folding phones have also not caught up, and the tablets have also not caught up. And tablets are like shrinking 47% in some cases, 32%, and so on and so forth, because the government's educational buys are not happening, and the user market is also not that green, right? So Samsung, by the way, is leading that market. Almost half of the market resides with Samsung, and then Apple has 11% of share. So that's what's happening with the tablet market. Shrunk 32% in H1. Samsung on top. Uh, Moving on. Adani, by the way, had a good EBITDA of 29,000 crores. Their debt to EBITDA ratio is pretty solid. Adani Group was really flying very close to the sun because of whatever was happening. But ever since Hindenburg happened, the group streamlines its debt. It started paying its debt back, and so on and so forth. Hindenburg essentially saved Adani. I had written a very viral article on this, and I'm glad that Adani Group is right now in the right direction. Moving on, we've talked about this. Peter Navarro called the US Russia Ukraine war as Modi's war. And the interviewer asked him, "Hey, do you mean Russian war? Russia's war? Putin's war?" He said, "No, Modi's war, because Modi is funding it." Moving on. Brands flag choked credit lines ahead of festivals. Retailers warned that festive sales could be hit as lenders restrict easy finance to borrowers with multiple loans and living in risky areas. So we've talked about this, that what small businesses were doing were they were having like active loans, 3 to 5 active loans, right? And what the banking system saw was like, this is a problem, man. This if it continues, it's gonna screw us up, right? So when that happened, banking guys essentially stopped lending to people with 3 to 4 active loans running, right? And when that happened, retailers are saying that it could actually hurt the festive season, because we might not be able to, because a lot of this happens on debt, right? A lot of inventory which retailers have, they are on credit, on debt, and so on and so forth, right? So they say that we might not be able to sell as much as we can if the credit restrictions are not eased. Now the banking perspective is that we have been facing a weird conundrum of the bottom of the pyramid loans becoming showing rising delinquencies. Is it delinquencies? Yeah, delinquencies. So that is a problem, and this is what's happening. Purse strings tighten. It's a report which is not a surprise. Volta's CFO says credit tightening is hurting consumer durables. Karnataka NBFCs block 700 plus areas after new recovery law, and so on and so forth. Personal loan growth halves to 12% year on year. Credit seen essentially the microfinance guys, the direct loan guys, they've been cautious, and their caution is essentially hurting, or let's say looking at hurting the consumption story. What do you think is going to happen with these guys? Moving on. Aviation industry losses to surge in FY26. Well, that shouldn't be surprising. Mr. Peter Thiel, a terrific mind, once said that competitive companies, like airline as an industry, never makes money, right? Airline as an industry just doesn't make money at all, right? And I was like, oh, that's strange. But then when I read the airline industry's money making prospects, I said, let's talk about Indigo, right? Let's talk about Indigo. How much money did Indigo make in all of these years, right? So if you essentially look at Indigo's last 7 years, it had 2 very bad years in which it lost almost all the money it made in the years preceding that, right? But then it started recovering, and if you look at the 15 years, Indigo shows a very good promise. But Indigo is just one company which has been able to make money in the airline, and even that is not that green, right? However green Indigo is, I'm not saying Indigo is not a green company, it is. However, Indigo is just the only company in the entire Indian aviation sector which has been able to make money. But if you read its last 7 years of financials, you will be surprised to know that things have not been green for Indigo, as green as you'd imagine, right? So, and FY26 is yet another year for bad, it's another bad year for aviation industry. Moving on. Coffee drinkers face new jolt. US coffee drinkers are facing new jolt. So US basically gave a 50% tariff to Brazil. Now Brazil is where a lot of Arabica coffee comes from for US market. Now that particular market is seeing a problem, because if that coffee is tariffed, the consumer price essentially goes up, because that's a commodity, right? Now futures are trading high. Futures is contracts which are buying something at a set price in future. Now these people generally, the coffee roasters and these guys, I read this in the biography of Howard Schultz, sir. He's the founder of Starbucks. Now Howard Schultz said that usually Starbucks, people like Starbucks, they buy their lot way in advance, like a year and a year and a half and 2 years. That's the kind of inventory that these people keep, right? So they shouldn't ideally be affected with a tariff which has been imposed just last month, right? However, a lot of people find it as an excuse to essentially, you know, squeeze the play. But some legit concerns are obviously existing, which is leading to some jolt as far as the food prices in US are considered. Now, while US inflation is not bad, US economy, by the way, grew 3.3%, right? Which is extraordinary. Which is so a lot of things that the Trump administration is doing for the US, for US, it's working, right? The economy is growing, inflation is down, tariffs are making money for them. They've been able to monetize a lot of problems. Earlier, they were sending money to Ukraine. Now, they're not. They're basically selling weapons to Ukraine, and Europe is paying for those weapons. So they've basically monetized the Ukraine issue, right? They've been able to monetize a lot of issues by just doing that. So they whatever they're doing has not translated for the coffee drinking population, and coffee is probably the most popular drink in US. Not the most popular. You know the most popular drink in US? Which one is it? It's orange juice, right? And then comes coffee. I mean, amongst the top. Moving on. Cable TV body is also appealing to a 5% slap for GST. You know why the cable TV guys must be asking for a 5% GST slab. We obviously know that, right? Because cable TV is screwed. It's just screwed, man. How badly is DTH falling? How badly is cable TV falling in general? 150 million DTH subscribers in 2015, 100 million, 90 million right now, 75 million to be projected in 2013. So just 15 years. The entire industry has shrunk to half. Now, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember that we talked about these people managing that market by coming with IPTV, Internet Protocol TV, right? Basically bundling cable TV with aggregated OTT, right? That's what their strategy is. But they want 5% GST, currently 18, citing mounting financial stress on operators and increasing costs to consumers, and so on and so forth. Cable TV continues to reach more than 64 million households and supports 1.1 to 2 million livelihoods. However, the industry has come under pressure from steep increases in broadcaster fees and so on and so forth, OTT and so on. Channel prices have surged and so on. So these people are asking government to help. How many industries can government help, right? Speaking of industries, government can help. AMCs don't need help. AMCs are very, very cool, but their valuations might just be looking too steep, right? Which is a bit of a problem. Mr. Gangwal, the founder of Indigo, he was supposed to sell 3% of stake. He's only sold 1.3%. Maybe some of the block deals will happen sometime. Moving on. India Inc. doubles up on borrowing overseas after sovereign upgrade. Viewers of Thinkers Frequency know this. We've discussed this in depth, right? That India India got a better rating by S&P, not by Fitch, right? Fitch didn't update our ratings, but S&P's did, from triple B negative, which is the worst slab, we got into triple B. Now that led to some interests, bond prices going low. With bond prices going low, some Indian incorporation companies have warmed up to foreign dollar dominated bonds, which is great news, of course. Some companies are Sammaan Capital, 300 million, Hero FinCorp, 300 million, Credila, 600 million, Muthoot Finance, 600 million, so on and so forth. We obviously know why this happens, right? Set to raise 2 billion in coming weeks, which is cool, right? 6.3%, 8.9%. So these people are benefiting from the sovereign upgrade, and which is very obvious. Moving on. Economists expect inflation to remain below the target despite the tariff trouble. It's very interesting how India has taken the whole tariff situation. it is not how we thought it was gonna go, right? It was just pretty crazy how, like, rationally, what you would have expected is that $100 billion market, and they were looking at raising it up to $1 billion. Oh, sorry, $500 billion. You'd expect India to do something to alleviate U.S. concerns, but the approach, how they basically approached it, essentially affected a national pride kind of a situation, which led to, and of course, Russia is a very time-tested ally and all-weather friend, basically an elder brother to the country. We've grown under the shadows of Russia, so it didn't play out at all as US thought it would, and Peter Navarro was very depressed. Clearly, moving on. Speaking of depression, government's online gaming ban is facing the first legal case. So these guys from A23, they run Rummy and Poker and all of these players. They are saying it affects the right to livelihood and so on and so forth. And that's a weak case. That's a pathetic case. I don't think it's gonna fly. But you know what's gonna happen, right? You know who's gonna make money while these things are litigated, right? Please give me that. Who's gonna make money? Who makes money while this thing is discussed, right? And nothing happens, by the way. Nothing happens, but a lot of to and pro happens. But who makes money while this happens? Mr. Sandeep Singh says lawyers make money. Lawyers make money, right? Right. And that's a travesty, but lawyers do make money, right? Moving on. India's first made chip soon out from CG Semi Gujarat plant. Now, Gujarat plant, CG, Killa, Mr. Aman Killa said, I would have studied law if I had seen your show earlier. Lawyers make money. We really need to go away from the litigating country to a building country, but that's where we are right now. Lawyers make money. Moving on. Semiconductors are new steel to build India's tech security, says CG Pars Subhaya. Now, why is he saying semiconductors are new steel? Do you know why he's saying that? It's a book reference, and the book is called Arsenal of Steel. Arsenal of Democracy. So Peter Navarro, he borrowed it from Peter Navarro. So America started tariffing steel, right? They said 50% tariffs on steel, and people said, why are you doing like tariffs on steel? Do you want to make steel? You're an $80,000 per capita income country. Why would you start manufacturing steel? It's a very low paying thing, right? He said because steel is the arsenal of democracy. And basically what he was referring to was American industry during World War, where American steel played out a very big role in America's triumph in the Second World War, where Ford, essentially a company which made cars, it stopped making cars and started making planes, right? Because of the steel production getting steamrolled, and they basically saved Europe. So arsenal of democracy, steel is referred to as arsenal of democracy. It was basically a president who called that, FDR, maybe FDR, but yeah, steel is the arsenal of democracy. So Mr. Subaya thought, semiconductors are the new steel, which is a pretty interesting frame, right? What do you think? It's a pretty interesting frame. And first made chip, India made chip to be coming from Gujarat plant, which is a very good news for the country. Moving on. PE firms turn to enterprise SaaS, taking investments up 66% in 2025. Maturing ecosystem which is profitable, having millions in recurring revenue, draws big money. And that money has not hit me yet. But better late than never, right? You live to fight another day. Moving on. Arsenal of democracy. Steel becoming the arsenal of democracy. Not missing out on anything, right? Moscow seeks revival of trade with China during Putin-Xi meeting. So is US, so is India, so is Japan, so is everybody else. What these people have done is that they've created the most unlikely coalition of India and China, right? So American right this is very important from a business and finance perspective and a geopolitical perspective. American right criticized the left, the Democrats, right, for pushing China into the arms of Russia by going at a war, at a hot war, going at a hot war with Russia as Ukraine as proxy, right? So American right said that Ukraine war is a disaster, Ukraine war is a big mistake, Ukraine war shouldn't have been happening. It didn't happen during Trump's first term. You made a mistake. You did a blunder, right? Obama era started that war. Biden era fueled it up. You made a mistake. You drew China to Russia, which is the biggest mistake because China and Russia, most number of people, largest landmass, great economy, everything, right? US gets screwed. Now, that was an interesting perspective. That was the right perspective to view things, right? Uh, but what US ended up doing was it ended up giving India in the arms of China as well, right? By this particular move. So essentially, both of the guys made the same mistake with just different perspectives, right? So American right thought that India is the counterweight to China in the larger geopolitical story, and that's how the whole economics were getting designed. China plus one essentially meant India. Apple and all of these people started manufacturing in India, make in India grew up, but they just they didn't just give Russia in the arms of China, they also gave India in the arms of China, and now nobody knows what's going to happen. They don't have any other option but to go back, by the way, on that play. So let's see what happens. US Q2 GDP revised upwards to 3.3%, consumer spending, private investment push. Well, a lot of what they're doing, a lot of what they're doing is working for them, at least. So that you've got to give it to them. That whatever happens in the world, US is looking like a better economy. So you never know. Speaking of Russia, it's not stopping the war at all. It's not meeting Zelensky. So nobody knows what's going to happen with that particular play. But hopes are on, and with hopes, by the way, uh, India and US both have been really focusing on reducing their health budget and their health outcomes, increasing their health outcomes per capita. So US spends the most in the world on health, but they have the worst health outcomes, right? So Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has come out with a report. He says by September we'll have a definitive answer to the autism problem, which is extraordinary. Mr. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has very, very interesting views, and those views are now going to be mainstream because he is in power. So let's see what happens to that. A great book which I recommend to everybody is The Real Anthony Fauci. Extraordinary book. It's just next level, very, very eye opening. But, despite everything that they're doing, it's setting a precedent to India as well. So whatever they did with their food, right? Red dyes, they're talking about salt, sugar, fat. They're talking about not using artificial sweeteners. They're basically motivating Coke. Coke is going to use cane sugar for its, one of its products. So this is unprecedented. A lot of that is also coming to India. So despite a lot of similarities between India and US, Indian democracy, by the way, is also very similar to US democracy. So when you study US democracy and you follow US politics, you'll find out just basically the same thing is playing out in India as well. Despite all of those things, US just shot itself in the foot. But that said, this brings us to the end of the 96th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Man, 96 episodes. The daily mental workout, the daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. It's 9:10, we're going to punch in anytime soon. We shouldn't punch in at 9:11, so let's talk a couple more minutes. Imagine 96 minutes, 96 days of daily mental workout. Just the effects it's had on me are extraordinary. I know so much more than I used to be. I have been a reader since 2012, right? And I'm like a voracious reader. I read a lot. I read like a copious amount, but just these 96 days have given me more than I guess the 10 years gave me as far as reading is considered. So I thank Scott Adams sir for this. My only concern is that if this mental workout also had like a physical workout, right? If I was so regular with my physical workout, by the 96th episode, I would have been doing this like naked. I would have been doing it at least shirtless, right? And then we would have been hosting this show, not on YouTube, but on OnlyFans. I wonder how much of revenue would that have fetched me. But jokes aside, it's been really fun. It's been a lot of fun, folks. Thank you so much for joining. It's lovely. I need to thank Mr. Tarun, Mr. Tiwari, Mr. Satish, Mr. Sandeep Singh, Mr. Aman Killa, and everybody else who joined. I hope you loved the episode. I hope it added a lot of value. I hope you have a beautiful day, personally and professionally. I'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time, hopefully. Take care, and bye-bye.